There is no better upgrade in the world for your Toyota Tundra than the NSV Light Bar. And in this video, I'm going to show you guys how to install it, what it looks like when it's all done, and what you actually get out of this thing when it's on the front of your truck. So let's get started. So the trick to installing this light bar properly lies right here. These are the NSV Light Bar instructions. They do not come with the light bar, and for good reason. You can find them on our website on the product description. The reason they don't come with the light bar is because occasionally things change, either with the light bar itself or with the vehicle itself. In 2019, a few changes went on, as well as the LED OEM headlights, and occasionally you need to tweak something. So if you're starting this installation, use this video as kind of a reference or a problem-solving guide if you're having trouble running a wire or locating a clip or a bolt. But truly, you need to reference these instructions because any changes will be in here. This will give you all the info you need. So, before you get started, on the front page of the instructions, you're going to find a list of every tool that you're going to need for this job. An assortment of pliers is a good idea, some pry tools. I have this fish here, and you're going to see why we need that in just a little bit. For running wires, you could use a coat hanger, you could use a zip tie with the end cut off. That works really well, a longer zip tie. You could use an actual fish from a hardware store like this. You're going to need a Phillips screwdriver or a Phillips drill. I have both. And a flashlight and a fender cover, just so you don't scratch any paint on your nice Tundra. So, with all that stuff laid out, go ahead and unbox your NSV light bar and we're going to get started. So the first step is pop your hood, and there are 3 bolts. One bolt here, here, and here. They're 10mm bolts. Go ahead and remove those. Set them off to the side. You will need them later. And using a pliers, there are 3 clips. There's a clip right here, and right here. They're just a push style clip. Squeeze the sides with the pliers like so. And just push the hood bulge outward as you do that. Pops free pretty easy. Just like that. At this point, we can just take the hood bulge, grab it with your left and right hand like this. And it should just pop off like so. At this point, all that was holding the hood bulge on was these clips right here at the very top. So just levering it back and forth like I just did, the thing should snap off pretty easy. You could use a screwdriver or a drill for this part. As you can see, I had to kind of work this black piece up and down a little bit. The reason for that is along the bottom here, they melt plastic from the factory to hold it in place along this top edge. And so you're just going to have to overcome that. It's really not a big deal. Now, you can grab your NSV light bar. Now the way NSV did this clip system is really cool to me. Along the bottom of the light bar, this is the bottom of the bulge, bottom of the light bar, you can use your factory screws, factory Phillips screws that you already removed. Along the top, like I mentioned, the factory just melted plastic there to hold that plastic piece in place. And since that's gone, we need a different way to secure this thing. So one screw still works at the very top here, right in the middle of the light bar. But over here, there's no way to secure it unless you use these plastic clips. So the way these clips install is the flat piece here goes toward this bracket and it just levers in there. This little slot, and then it lines up with this hole right here. That's where your Phillips head machine screw comes in. Now you don't need a ton of force here to get this screw installed. So do not over tighten it. Don't go crazy. It's very easy to strip it out. It's just there to snug it up and hold it from vibrating. So there are 4 of these clips total. You just saw me put one in, and I'll give you a little bit different angle for this one. Now that you've got those harder screws in, you can go ahead and pop the original Phillips screws in up on the bottom of the light bar here. Compared to aligning the brackets and everything, this is super easy. I usually just put the screw in the hole to get it started, and then come back through with a screwdriver or a drill and just tighten them up. Once again, you don't need to go crazy. Nothing on this portion of the install needs to be super tight. So use a screwdriver, snug it up by hand. The next step is to run your light bar wire harness through your hood. And this is tricky for some people, and I completely understand why. You've got this hole right here which the wiring passes through, and you need to get it up to the hood bulge where your light bar is going to end up. Take your fish and just insert it in this hole here. And I've found that if you keep it toward the outside of the hood, it seems to have a pretty easy shot right up to the bulge here. There it is. If you try to keep it toward the outside, you're going to have a good time. And if you try to work it this way at all, it's not going to work out very well. So keep it toward the outside. Now with that ran successfully, I'm going to take the cover off these pins. I'm going to gently tape them to that fish with some black electrical tape here, and they should pass through just fine. Gently feed it through the sheet metal hole here in the hood. Let it make the bend, and then grab your wire fish and feed with this hand and pull with your left hand. As you can see, that went real well for me. Work slowly, take your time. If you hit any obstructions, any obstacles, any snags, just gently pull back with your right hand. Try to readjust it with both hands and send it back through. Now that you got the wiring ran through the hood bulge, we can pin this connector. And figure 16 in the instructions shows you exactly how to do it. Make sure that this connector is oriented exactly how it shows in the connector, in the instructions. So in the instructions, this part is on the left, and you're looking at it from here. If you pin it wrong, you're going to have to de-pin it, start over, and that's not any fun, trust me. Here's figure 16 in the instructions, and it shows you exactly how to pin the connector. Once again, the connector plugs in right here, so I just kept that to the left while I was pinning it. Pin 1, 2, skip 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Pin 1 is going in the upper left. Insert the pin like so. There we go. Just like that. You're going to hear it click in. Pin 3 goes directly, or pin 2 goes directly below pin 1. So once again, just look through the bundle here, find pin 2. There we go. I'm sure you can hear it on the camera. It clicks in real nice. If you get a pin that does not click in like that, redo it. Pull it out a little bit, reposition it, and try to get it to click in real nice. You don't want this thing to de-pin when you plug it in. Now, in the instructions, you're going to find that there is no pin 3. On the first generation of these light bars, there was no pin 8. There is now a pin 8. There's no pin 3. So skip the pin 3 hole. Go down to the pin 4. Here's pin 4. Insert the pin just like that. You'll hear it click in. Right here is where pin 5 goes. So now we're looking for pin 6. There's pin 6. Pin 7. In the upper right here, is where pin 9 goes. When you're doing this install, try not to bend these pins too much. You should try to leave the pin as straight as possible. Let the wire bend, if anything. Got pin 11. And finally, we've got pin 12. Now at this point, the connector's all pinned in and everything looks good. Go ahead and just move the wires around a little bit. Make sure everything's in there real solid, real secure. The last thing you want to do is get this far, plug it all in, and have one of those pins pop out and not work. So the moment you've all been waiting for. Grab the hood vent with your NSV light bar installed, bring it over to the vehicle, and you need to connect that 12-pin connector that you just got done pinning to the light bar. just like this. It's a nice solid connection. And go ahead and just reinstall the hood bulge. If you get those top push pins in, it'll hold the whole thing in place so you can work on it a little easier. Now you can pop the hood and bolt this thing in just like it was. Go ahead and reinstall your bolts. I like to start them by hand personally and make sure they're going in there just fine. Now I'm going to go back through and just snug them up. Make sure your plastic clips are popped in properly as well. Now at this point you can go ahead and look everything over, admire what you've done, and let's not forget what we've done here. We have installed a metal light bar in a plastic hood vent. And so if there's any kind of fitment issues, the reason there would be any to begin with is because the bar is not totally installed properly. So if you get to this point and you see something weird going on up here, or maybe some flexing over here, now would be a good time to just pop it back off. You're not too far in the process yet. Loosen a couple brackets and shift it around a little bit. Make sure it's settled in properly. When it's installed properly, it should fit perfect, as you can see here. Near the battery here, you're going to find behind the headlight, there's a 3-pin gray connector. Unplug that. We've got a nice little T-harness here for the NSV light bar. And that's going to plug into that connector. I know my hand's blocking it. Just give me 1 second, I'll show you what I've got going on here. So plug the male end of the T-harness into there. Take the female end and plug it back into the headlight. Like so. Now, depending on your truck, you may need to follow the jumper wire instructions. They're in the instructions, follow them to the T. It just involves taking power from the motorized headlight plug and running it to this NSV harness. It's not a big deal. The instructions are very thorough on it. On this particular truck, we didn't have to do that. It depends on whether or not you have DRLs. So if you have DRLs, or if you don't have DRLs, there are different instructions for you based on that option. Whether or not your truck had DRLs depends on your trim level. You can also look at the headlight to find out. And once again, depending on whether or not you have them, you'll have to do a slightly different instruction for each. Now we just need to install our battery connections. I hook them up on the back of the battery terminal just because up here is kind of a high traffic area, people replacing batteries and stuff like that. You don't want them constantly wrenching on your NSV light bar terminals, and eventually they'll break, and that's the last thing you want. It's just the nature of small ring terminals. So go ahead and just put it on the back side. It's a 12mm socket you're going to need. And it'll never give you trouble back there. So we're in the vehicle now, and the instructions tell you to remove this panel and this side kick panel here to access the wiring a little bit easier. I'm going to tell you that you can do that if you so choose, but honestly all you really need to take off is this. And on this particular truck, it's got a manual tilt, manual telescopic steering wheel. It's not power. If you have power, you're going to have a little thing right here. Make sure to clear that when you pull this cover off. Honestly, the wiring is pretty accessible with these panels on. It's not very hard to run it. It's absolutely up to you. If you'd rather have the space, you can take these off. In this case, we're just not going to do that. We don't have to do it. So, starting with these Phillips screws, turn your steering wheel a little bit and you'll see a Phillips screw right here. Remove this Phillips screw. I used a long screwdriver bit for that. You're going to want to use a long screwdriver so you don't mar up your steering wheel at all. Turn it the other way. There's a screw on the exact opposite side, same place. Set those off to the side, we'll need them later. Now you can go ahead and split your steering column. There really isn't a trick to that. It pops apart pretty easy, to be honest. So. There we go. Now as you can see, that's awfully simple compared to taking all of these pieces apart. Once again, it's up to you. If you want to do that for more room, you can. We're going to unwrap our harness. And this right here is a T-harness going to your high beam switch, which is right here. Let's go ahead and press in on that, pull it out. Plug it in just like so. Plug this end back into the high beam switch. Now we're going to tuck this up here, keep it nice and out of the way of any moving parts, and run the rest of our NSV harness down here. Just stuff the slack back there. You can reach up and pull it down over this panel. There we go. So we've got a couple things to consider right now. These T-taps, in the instructions it says to go to your trailer brake connector. It's much easier if you follow along a little later in the instructions where it says to go to the cigarette lighter plug instead. And that's behind the switch panel that we're going to replace. Trust me, it is so much easier to plug those in there. And on a vehicle that didn't have it to begin with, the trailer brake connector, going to the cigarette lighter just saves so much headache later. So we're going to be connecting those to the cigarette lighter plug. These are for your switches, these 3 plugs right here. And then once again, we've got some more pins to pin into a connector in a little bit. And those are going to get run under the hood. Super easy. I'm going to show you exactly how to do it. At this point, we're going to use a pry tool to pop the cigarette lighter panel out in the center of the vehicle. And we're going to switch it out with our NSV panel. Take a small pry tool, and by small I mean thin. Thinner the better. Reach inside the crack here between the cigarette lighter panel here and the rest of the trim of the truck. And you got to be so careful not to mar up the surfaces of your truck's trim panel. It doesn't take a ton of pressure. As you can see, it pops out just like that. Pull it toward you. And we're going to go ahead and disconnect these wires here. I was just telling you guys about the cigarette lighter plug. This is what we're going to be working with in just a little bit here. There's actually 2 of them. One on the left and one on the right. All right, let's take this to the table and we'll swap all these parts over. All right, we've got our switch panels out. We've got our original switch panel here, and we've got our NSV panel right here. And we're going to put some stuff from the original panel onto the NSV switch panel. Starting with the little security thing here and the USB/aux input right here. These pop out easy enough. You can take a pry tool or a screwdriver, press in on this little lip up top here, and push the socket inward. You may or may not have to do the same on the bottom. It might just go on its own, like this one did, and then it's just going to fall right out. Set that off to the side. Same thing over here. Press in on the top lip, push the socket inward. That one fell right out. Great. And then we've got an option with the 12-volt cigarette lighter. You can take this one out of your panel and install it in your NSV panel. You can see there's a hole for it. It'll work just fine. Or you can get the optional USB charger. It is on the same page as the NSV light bar on our website. There are guys out there that really love this thing because it gives you 2 more USB ports for charging your cell phone, charging any accessories you have, bringing your total on this guy up to 3. It's pretty handy. If you want to do that, all you have to do is connect the power to the red wire from your cigarette lighter plug, existing plug in the vehicle, and black goes to the other wire. It's real simple. I'll give you the play-by-play when we get in there. I'm going to show you guys how to get this 12-volt plug out of this panel first, because this thing is actually kind of challenging, kind of tricky, and so I figured I'd help you with that. To remove this plug, there are pins on the left and right of it. From the back, just wedge a screwdriver in and pry it out. And then you're going to need to push down on it. And some of these are really tight. This one wasn't so bad. It's actually on its way out now. But what you're trying to do is get the silver barrel out of this thing. Just like that, set off to the side. From the back here, there are now teeth on the top and bottom that you need to press. So just take a little screwdriver and press in on that and push it out. And that'll give you the trap door for your charger. Now, reinstalling the 12-volt cigarette lighter plug is the exact opposite of the removal. You put this trap door and ring in the panel first, and you pop the barrel in. Simple as that. Take your security plug and plug it right back into where it came from. Snaps into place. These guys make such good panels. Plug this in, and we're almost ready to take this back to the vehicle. There's one thing left to do, and this is a funny story behind this. We've got all these little plastic fasteners here that you need to transfer the new panel, and when I first did this video a couple months ago for the Generation 1 light bar, I was prying one of these off and it shot across the shop. So be sure to have your hand in front of it when you're prying it off, because they're under some tension and they will shoot and you will not find it. So you can use a small screwdriver or a pry tool, get underneath this little plastic retainer and pry it toward you. Try to keep a finger on it at the very least. If not, just put your hand over it, because they can shoot off of there. Same thing with the white ones in the middle. Just get a flat screwdriver under it like so, pull it toward you, and as you can see, I am not taking any chances here. There we go. Finally done with the original panel. That can just get set off to the side. Take your yellow retainers first and just clip them right onto the panel like so. Sometimes it feels like they don't go on all the way. If that's the case, I found that flipping it around and trying to put it on the other way works just fine. Take your white retainers and just go like that. And now we're ready to bring this back to the vehicle. At this point, we need to get our switch wiring up to our switch panel area. And the easiest way to do that, honestly, is with the same wire fish that you used to get the wiring through the hood in a previous step. So if you've still got that available, pass it through using this. It's so much easier. If not, I've done it the other way. It takes a little more effort, but it's totally possible. So one quick tip here. We didn't pull this panel off, but if you just take your hand and pop it toward you like this, there's plenty of slack to relieve the two top connectors. And you've actually got a little room back there if you want to work with that. Pass your fish through, just like so, and you'll see it pop out right there. And you can just gently route your wiring along the inside of that panel. Alright, so I'm going to fish these wires through. I'm just going to tape it up just like we did under the hood. If you tape all the connectors together and then tape them to the fish, you're going to end up having just a ball of hard plastic, and it's going to be pretty hard to get it to move. So, go ahead and just route the wiring. You can kind of pull back on this panel just a little bit to make sure everything goes the way you want it. Now, I'm not sure how that looked on camera. That might have looked easy. It's probably the hardest part of the install. It's tight back there. There's no way around it. It's not, the sub dash really isn't designed to pass wires through, you know? So just pick a line, pick an area that you can get it through, and do your best. Pull slowly and try not to get anything snagged. All right, we've got our wires where they need to be. We've got our T-taps down here as well. I'm going to show you guys the last little bit here. First thing you're going to want to do, if you remember, there's two cigarette lighter plugs on this vehicle from the factory, and the wires are awfully simple. We've got a red wire and we've got a white with black. Red's your positive, white with black is your negative, and it's the same on both sides. So both of these are cigarette lighter plugs. What you need to do is take your T-taps and connect both of them to one of those red wires. So you'll see one side of the T-tap has these hinges right here. Open the opposite side, and you'll see where to place the wire. In this case, we're going to the red wire. I apologize if some of these shots get a little dark. It's just a little challenging to show you guys everything, but as you can see, we're going to rest it on those metal teeth there, and we're just going to clamp it down. Now, sometimes on these, they're just awfully tight, and I use the pliers to clamp them down. If you can't get it with your hands, there's no shame in using pliers. Do the same thing for the other one. Open it up. Put that red wire in there. Shut it and just clamp down on it. So once again, here are our two T-taps. We've got a blue one and a red with black. One's illumination and one's ignition power, and this is the perfect thing for that. So we've connected them both to this red wire, and that leaves us with one red wire for, or that leaves us with one cigarette lighter plug for our 12-volt power or our USB charger, whichever one you're set up for. Now, if you're using the USB charger that you can get with this light bar optionally, it comes with this harness, and it has bullet connectors on it, and what it's designed for is you can take the, as you can see, they neck down into the same power and same ground. It just happens to have two on each end. But what you're going to do is just cut this plug off and crimp the bullet connectors down on there, on these wires instead, and then one red is going to go to your red wire, and the black is going to go to this white with black. Simple as that, nothing else to it. Like I said earlier, this customer opted for the 12-volt cigarette lighter plug. Like I said, he's got a few accessories that he needs that to run with, and that's perfectly fine. That's why we give people options. So, I'm going to start with the cigarette lighter plug. Plug that in right over here. Like so. These three groups of wires are all labeled. You've got DRL, Light Bar, and this one should be Swipe. If you look at the front switch panel, you're going to see they're also labeled Swipe, DRL, and Light Bar. Match them up to which one they go to. This one's Light Bar, so I'm going to plug it in there. This one's Swipe. And finally we have DRL. Just like so. Now all we have left to do is plug in our USB and our security with the factory connectors that we left behind here. Just like that. Now at this point you can go ahead and put your switch panel back in the vehicle. Just tuck the wires, the extra wire slack that you might have back here. And the panel should pop right into place just like the old one came out. And there we have it. It's perfect. Fits just like the factory panel did. Alright, we're back in the front of the truck, and I understand there's a lot of back and forth. I get that. Trust me, if you do it just like I'm doing it, everything's going to work out just fine. There's a little piece of rubber that's jutting out down here underneath the main wire harness, and the instructions tell you to cut it off and pass the wiring through from the cab of the vehicle out toward you, out toward the engine bay. And so the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to cut it off and I'm going to send this fish through, this trusty fish. I feel like we should make this something on the website for you to purchase because this thing's super useful for this job. I'm going to cut that off, put this down there, we'll tape it up on the inside of the truck, and we'll pull it through, pin it out here, and we're going to be all done. So we're in the home stretch. If you've made it this far, we're just about done. So as you can see, here's the wire harness, and underneath it is the piece of rubber you need to cut. It's hard to see, it's even harder to get down there. But with a razor blade, you can get it just fine. This is what it looks like down there. I just cut it and removed it completely. Now I'm going to pass the wire fish through the hole that we just made. So here's the fish moving through the hole down below the wire harness. And that's what we're going to pass our wiring through with. And we're just going to tape our wiring up and pass it through there. This is a shot from the inside of the vehicle, just so you're aware. And now we just have to tape our pins up, pull them out, and we're good to go. If you can pull wiring through the hood of a Toyota Tundra, you can definitely do this part. This is much easier than that. Much less chances of it getting stuck, I'll say that. Alright, it's taped up. Let's go pull that through. We're at a point where we can just pull it through now. We got our wires passed through finally, and you're going to be working kind of down here. There's not a ton of slack, but it's plenty. There's only 6 pins anyways. This connector is numbered 1 through 6, and these pins are numbered 1 through 6. So at this point, look at the connector, match them up, and leave this red piece out for now. That's your locking, that locks your pins in, so leave it out. If you push it in, you won't be able to plug any of these in. find pin number 1 and push it into the number 1 slot until it clicks, just like so. We've got pin number 2 somewhere here. Insert that until it clicks. Pin number 3. We've got pin number 4, pin number 5, and finally pin number 6. Now, just like that other connector we did in the hood, make sure all of these are plugged in properly. And if they are, go ahead and press your red retainer in. Just like that. Now, plug it in to the hood harness, just like so. Make sure your pins are all still nice and secure. We're at the point now where we can test everything and make sure everything works properly. If it does and everything works just the way you want it, go ahead and put everything back together, button it up, zip tie this right here, and you're all done. Well, let's go check this thing out and see how it looks when it's all powered up. As you can tell, I wasn't exaggerating. That is the best upgrade you can do for your Toyota Tundra. You've got this empty hood vent on the front of your truck just sitting there anyways. You might as well throw a light bar in it, and we're happy to help you do exactly that. Now, this guy's already missing out on the headlights and fog lights too, and we're not gonna let him leave like that. That's for a different video. But if you need headlights, fog lights, reverse lights, or the NSV light bar for your Toyota Tundra, visit our website, headlightrevolution.com, and be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We've got so much stuff coming out for this truck and many like it every single day. Thank you for watching.